Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet, whatever time it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Nim Grinvald. I'm the technical evangelist here at Kintone. And today, as part of our development program event, we are going to be working with React and building a search bar on React, combining it with online lightweight database called Kintone. What I'd like to do first is make sure that you have all of the necessary materials to get started. So the first is going to be the code and the slides. There's a GitHub repository that's available. Genji just dropped that link in the chat. Thank you so much, Genji. Git clone that repository on your machine. And then if you have not done so already, there's two signups for you to handle. Very easy, quick. First one is going to be a Kintone developer program account. You're going to sign up on that. The link is also in the chat, and a Kintone subdomain. The Kintone subdomain is going to let you create your own Kintone environment that you'll be able to play with. Let's keep moving. So once you've installed the repository, you're going to want to npm install the modules that are relevant and related to this repository. Installing these dependencies takes some time to run in the background, so get started at your earliest convenience. In other words, now, if you can. And the details are going to be listed in the Get Started section of this repository. To sign up for a developer account, you're going to follow this link. Make sure that you're on that you are not on Safari, that you're using Chrome or Firefox. And what you'll do is you'll put in your full name, your email address, that you've accepted the cookies, and then you'll go ahead and sign up. And then to create a Kintone subdomain, it'll be similar. You're going to follow this link, fill out a form. You're going to make sure that you name your subdomain. In other words, the environment that you'll be putting. It'll be some alphanumeric or a hyphen. So you might be like weekend-hacker.kintone.com, coffeeforlife.kintone.com, whatever you're going to put in that first part. That's the subdomain. That's what you're going to fill out. And then what'll happen is you'll stay tuned for an email, and that email will hook you into the environment. Introductions before we really kick it up a notch. Again, my name is Nim. I am Kintone's technical evangelist. I'm here to help you see what's possible with our platform so that you have more options with whatever it is that's important to you that you want to build. Joining me today are my colleagues, Sean and Genji. There's a lot of ways you could be spending your time and attention, and you're spending it with us. I don't take that for granted, and I want to make sure that we're delivering what you're here for. So thanks for being with us, and let's build a search bar with React. Okay, so here's what we're going to make today. We're going to make a search bar in Kintone using a special JavaScript customization that when you type in a string on that search bar, it will present to you a list of all of your records that match that string. So there are multiple parts of our workshop today. And the first one's going to be the foundation, setting up the project, making sure we've crossed the T's and dotted all the I's so that when we jump into play, everything is going to behave exactly the way that we're expecting. The second is Kintone setup. So you'll learn about Kintone, what it is, how you can create a web database with it, and then we're going to create something called a custom view, which is, in a phrase, a box that you can put JavaScript in. And that's actually a pretty amazing thing to have for any kind of a SaaS product, where you can upload a script and run it and interact with the SaaS environment however you please, not just the on-screen DOM, but also the like the API behind the scenes. And then we're going to actually move from there into VS Code and do some coding in JavaScript to build out that search bar, which will have a few features to it. We'll be able to display records as a list, to filter results with the user input, and then update the displayed list. We're going to do that with React. So again, if you haven't downloaded the repository, here's what you need to do that. Git clone the following repo and npm install. Make sure that you npm install if you have not. And then there's a global npm module for you to install. This is called the Kintone Customize Uploader, and it's going to automate the process by which you save your JavaScript and then upload it into Kintone. So you don't need to do that manually. At this point in time, please check to make sure that your node and your npm versions are up to date. You'll do that by typing in the following commands into your terminal: node-v, npm-v, and then what you'll need for React is to make sure that they are above 10.16 for node and 5.6 for npm. If you are not familiar with node.js, not a problem. Here's a link. And you will likely have, if you're not familiar with Node, you'll likely have some questions, and Genji will be all over that. The repository that you download, once you spin it up into VS Code, is going to look like this. It will have a whole bunch of files inside of directories, inside of the directory that you downloaded. Check out the README for the specific details. For an overview, here's what you need to know. We've got important code in the source folder, index.html, index.css, and so the yellow circles are going to be what interacts with Kintone's REST API. The green rectangles are going to be the React components that make up our front end, and the purple rhomboids are the environmental files that will hold your Kintone credentials. These are the files that we're going to be touching today: the .env, the customize-manifest.json, index.js, ResultList.js, and SearchBar.js. There's a lot of other cool things in these other files, and I encourage you, if you're ahead on time or if you're super curious afterwards, to check it out, mess with it, and see what happens when you play around. I think it'll be very educational for you. I know Genji and our Kintone developer program team have spent a lot of time making sure that this code is not just usable for our workshop today, but is also like a really valuable learning opportunity for you to run with on your own. Okay, let's jump into Kintone. We want to talk about what Kintone is so you know what tools we'll be using in this build and why. So Kintone is a no-code, low-code cloud platform for teams to easily share and collaborate on their data. And you may be familiar with other cloud platforms that hold data. But what's special about Kintone is that the data and the conversations about the data aren't all in one place. Now, who cares? Why is that important? Well, because the way that you very likely, and many people certainly work with computers, is a bizarre artifact of not really thinking through how to work effectively. We've got multiple apps that are talking about data. They live in, they're not talking about it, multiple data files at all sorts of places. They could be in databases, competing databases, like Google Drive, or they could be in spreadsheets or Excel files. And it's a mess. It's just really like a mess to figure out where your files are. And then on top of that, the conversations about the data live in multiple places. So you might be like emailing a spreadsheet to 3 different people, but oh wait, no, was it on Slack? Or oh, maybe it was, am I still using Facebook Messenger because my job wants me to? Or maybe this stuff, maybe I like attached it to like an iCal file. I don't even remember. But this is a common conversation for many people in many different places doing knowledge work. And frankly, it sucks because the information is not being shared effectively and it's not clear where the conversation's happening. And so remember we were talking about honoring your time in the beginning, like we value your time and attention and we want to, take it for granted. Well, like this system obviously takes your time for granted because you're spending it looking for stupid stuff instead of doing the things that actually matter to you. And so we're here to talk about, fundamentally, we're here to talk about what's possible when you can combine your data with your conversations about the data and what that now makes available in terms of streamlined workflows. Even stuff like, even if you're a developer, you still file expense reports. You still, like, there's still hiring processes that are happening around you and that you were involved in at least once. And so when you've got a way to have all of those kinds of processes and workflows around you work so that the right people are seeing the right things at the right time, there's a ton of value that happens there. Like take, for example, an expense report. You submit it as a user, your manager approves it, that gets sent to the accounting department. And so to be able to hook that into database behavior and like chat behavior, like effective communication is a really big deal. So why am I telling all of you this? I'm going to get there, but I need to talk a little bit more about how Kintone works before I talk about why it matters to you specifically. So the main building block in Kintone is an app, and you can imagine an app as a powerful table, like a spreadsheet table, only with more like that's more helpful, or a database table, but it's more helpful than that. And data is stored in records. Records are like the atomic unit of thing that we use in Kintone. And the reason why apps are really neat is that you can build stuff with them super fast. So you can use a drag and drop interface with no coding. And you literally drag fields from the palette on the left-hand side of the page onto the canvas on the right-hand side of the page, which we'll do shortly. And that enables you to spin up a database super quickly. And then what you can do, which is super special, is you can then execute client-side JavaScript to customize the behavior of these Kintone apps. So what that makes available is, if you're allergic to technology, and if you're on a workshop with us tonight, this is not you. I'm clear. Like, you're here for a React workshop. You are not allergic to technology. But the people who are allergic to technology, they can start building stuff on their own in ways that they couldn't do before. So they can stop bothering people like you who have more important things that you want to do. And what you can do is you can use your special JavaScript skills to enhance these apps with client-side JavaScript so that they work better for the people who need them, which may include you. And at the same time, you can build them faster than you could otherwise, which is the value of that canvas that we're talking about. That instead of spending a few hours like spinning up putting in some commands, you're doing some very quick GUI drag and dropping, and then you're saving a ton of time again that you can put towards other things. Ultimately, this platform is designed to fulfill the promise of groupware. And when we talk about groupware, what I'm talking about is collaborative software that helps teams work better together wherever they are. If you're working in a company, you're working on some kind of a team. Even if you're alone, there's a team happening around you that's supporting you. With groupware, you can share meaningful insights about the data that become operationalized quickly. And that's what we want. We want to be able to we got some data, we're going to talk about it, we're going to come to some decisions, and then those decisions are going to create the impact, and then we can review and adjust and repeat as necessary, which is exactly what a typical management cycle looks like. So you, as a special person who has who is an aptitude for technology, who do you as a developer contribute? So you can create a custom look and feel for your Kintone platform, and you can hook it into other third-party web applications to exchange data, which makes Kintone sit as a presentation layer on top of your data that people can it collects the valuable data, perhaps even there's some aggregation happening, and then it presents it so that you can talk about it and make decisions about it as a team. And then you can build and share extensions, which are like the customizations I was talking about, JavaScript files, but they're wrapped around with a form, so that people who are not comfortable with technology, they can use these packaged plugins, which you can imagine like a Chrome extension. They can use them in Kintone without needing to touch any code, and you've successfully created a nice package that extends people's native features to give them what they want. In order for that to happen, we need developers who are comfortable using JavaScript. And there are lots of tools inside of Kintone to help you do that. We've got APIs. There's a specific client-side JavaScript API that you can access with the code that we built. There's REST APIs that you can hook into from any other server. API tokens to make sure that your information is secure, webhook, so you can push data on to whatever other third-party tool you're using that's like downwind of Kintone. The plugins are these extensions I was talking about, and then we've got precise permission controls so that you can make sure, again, that the right people are seeing the right things at the right time. I talked a little bit about creating a custom look and feel, and I'm not kidding. There's a lot that we can do. Remember I said Kintone is like a table in a database or like a spreadsheet, but more helpful. Well, here's how it can be more helpful. You can create these kind of, in this case, there's a bubble chart on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, there's a Space Invaders app that's running. It's cool. I don't see this ever going live in a production environment, but nevertheless, I think it shows the capabilities of what you can actually run here with your scripting to make these views very powerful. And in fact, it's these custom views that we're going to be working with today. If you are still on your journey to be like a better developer, and maybe that's everybody, maybe you're just starting and you want to be a better developer, maybe you're a veteran with 10 or 15 or 20 years of experience and you're still looking for that edge. Well, what Kintone can help you is by helping you play around with JavaScript. You can learn some new tricks. You can contribute your learnings to tech blogs. You can share your projects with the community. If you're looking to make some money, and who isn't these days, we've got an opportunity for you to create revenue, which I'll speak very briefly about. If you want to create and sell Kintone extensions, I think there's an opportunity for you to do that. If you wanted to use Kintone as a tool to help, like your toolkit to consult with firms on achieving their business goals by using technology, Kintone can help you do that. And then you can also help develop Kintone customizations for customers. So that's why and how. Well, no, that's why and how. Here we go. Let's create a Kintone database app. We'll go through it step by step, and we should get all of your questions answered. So the first thing you should do is, if this is your first time playing with Kintone and you've added yourself, you've created an account in the Kintone developer program, and you've created your subdomain. These are the next things for you to do. Check your email, activate your developer license, set your initial password for whatever the value of your underscore subdomain is. And then you'll log into Kintone. So at this point in time, please raise your hand if you are already logged into Kintone and you have either seen this screen and have gone past it, or you are on this screen. I have the domain, but I don't know how to get there. So step 1, you've created your Kintone developer license. Step 2, you've created a Kintone subdomain. Step 3, you've checked your email. You check your email and you're going to click on Activate Now. If you have received this email, click on Activate Now, set your initial password, and you should be able to go to, as Genji put, your underscore subdomain.com, where your subdomain is whatever it is that
the default username. So the one that, if you haven't configured it yet, is the email address that you have used to create this account.
Let's go ahead and create our first Kintone database app. And I believe it's a first for everybody. And if it's not, no worries. We're going to create our nth database app. So what you'll do is in this portal, there is a window pane called Apps on the right-hand side, a segment of the page. And in the Apps on the top right corner of that Apps zone is a plus sign. Click on that plus sign. We're going to create our first app. Go ahead and create your app from scratch. So you'll be in the Kintone marketplace. You're going to click Create App from Scratch. And then over here we are in our new app. Remember, an app is like a table in a database or a spreadsheet in a workbook. And it's more helpful. And so over here, we're gonna name our app with a title. Our title is going to be called MangaDB. We're going to be creating a list of mangas. For those of you who don't know what a manga is, join the club. Neither do I. Genji put this deck together, and then mangas are like his favorite thing. So we just roll with it. A manga is some kind of Japanese comic book, and I feel like I'm not doing it justice, but oh well. there is two important parts of this page. The left-hand side where there's a palette and the right-hand side where there's a canvas. We're going to drag and drop fields from the palette to the canvas, just like that. Go ahead, drag and drop, add 2 text fields. Boom, boom. And now what we're going to do is hover over one of those text fields. You should see for any field that you hover over, there's like a gear wheel on the right-hand corner of that field, top right-hand corner. Hover over that and you'll see another drop-down menu emerge. You're going to click on settings. Once you click on settings, you'll be able to change the settings of this text field. And we're going to make 2 very important changes. The first is to the name and the second is to the field code. The name gets changed by going into the field and typing in name, or that is titled name, and replacing the string text with a different string title. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to change the field code. The field code is on the bottom of those field settings. And you're going to change it from text or text_0 to title. And then with the second text field, you'll do something very similar for author. The other one is lowercase author. Your code will break if you do not change the field codes. I'll explain why in a little bit. Or maybe no, maybe this is the time for me to explain why. So here's the deal. Whenever you're creating fields with Kintone, we need, is this case sensitive? The bottom, the title, the field code will be case sensitive. So yes. Here's the deal. Whenever you're creating fields with Kintone, Kintone is essentially, you've got a GUI for creating fields in a record. And so there's some kind of like a user-facing field, which is what is the name. And then there's like a back-end facing field where Kintone knows how to refer uniquely to each field. Conceivably, you could have multiple text fields that are called title or multiple text fields that are called name, but they need an individual field code that's unique so that Kintone can distinguish them when it's like doing stuff to each field. Folks, the next step over here is once you've changed your title and your author and changed those field codes, it'll look like this. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to move to the Views tab, and we're going to create a custom view. Now, the way that we do that is going to be by clicking on that Views tab in the app settings. Sorry, clicking on the Views tab in this back-end settings for the app, and then clicking on the plus sign on the right-hand side of the page. Once you do that, we will be creating a new view. You're going to name it Search Bar View, and you're going to click on Custom View when it comes to visible fields in column order. So typically a view is like a list of records, like a filtered list of records. And it could be very handy if like you want to see like, oh, show me all of my tasks that are due today, or show me like all of the expense reports that have been filled out for the last month, or show me like all of our sales teams closed business for the last, rolling 90 days, whatever. Okay. That stuff you don't need JavaScript for. Kintone will do that right out of the box, but we want to do something sophisticated. We want to use React to build a search bar, and we're going to query, we're going to type stuff into that search bar and get a list that's going to match our string. And so we want to do something custom. And so we're going to click on this custom view radio button right over here. And when we do, it's going to give us a view ID. Grab that view ID for us, and our subdomain, it was 5524238. Yours will probably almost certainly be a different number. So make sure you grab yours and then like just save it somewhere. It was like drop it in a text file or keep it copied. I don't think we're going to need to overwrite it at the moment. The next thing that I want to show you is that this custom view, remember I said a custom view is basically like a box to put code in, a box to do scripting in. It's exactly what's going to happen over here. We've got this HTML code, and we're going to create a div with an ID of root that all of our scripting behavior is going to hang off of. For our purposes, this custom view is very simple. It's just a div. It's got an ID of root. That's the only attribute that's on this tag. That's all we need. And then from there, we click on Save at the top left. That'll take us back into our app backend. And then we'll click on this blue button, Activate App, at the right-hand side of the page. And when we do, ta-da, we have our app. That's it. That's it. That's how we built our first app. Now, what we should expect is that whenever we're building a database and we've built out the schema is our data will be empty. And so that's exactly what we have over here. We've got this empty app with no data. We're going to start creating records. Before we do, though, I want to make sure that everyone's caught up as tracking with us. So please raise your electronic hand that you've created an app. That app has 2 fields in it. Those fields are title and author. You currently have no data or more than one piece of data in there. And you have created a custom view. You've named it. And you've grabbed your view ID of that custom view. And that you've got a div in there with an ID of root. Terrific. Brian, Sean, Julie, Tyler, Robbie, Jose, Alexa, Daniel, Nathan. Excellent, everybody. Excellent. And great, Genji went ahead and dropped that custom view HTML code in there. Jen, terrific. Are we missing anybody? Can you repeat the steps from search bar view? Hell yeah. Here we go, search bar view. Here we go. So I've created a new view. I've named it search bar view. I've clicked on custom view as the radio button. Once I've clicked on that custom view radio button, there are 2 more steps. Step number 1, grab that view ID. Step number 2, put in the following HTML code. /div ID equals quote root quote and bracket end bracket div. We're creating a div over here. It's an empty div. It's got an ID of root. We're going to reference it in our JavaScript. And we're going to hook all of our React behavior onto this. Julie, did we get what you needed? Please raise your hand if we got you where you needed to get. Wait. Yes, no problem. Would you like to unmute yourself and we can help you walk through it? You type the ID. Done. Great. And you've saved the custom view and you've activated the app. This might say update app if you've already activated it. What we're basically doing is we're moving this app from a hidden development environment into essentially into production. And now we're going to start creating new records. So folks, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and click on this plus sign. Oh, hold on a second, Julie. Yep. So the ID equals root. The ID is going to be root. That number that you're seeing over here, this is just a number you're going to hold on to. Yes, correct. Just note down the ID. Just note it down. Great job. Yeah, no problem. We're going to create a record. Click on that plus sign if you have not done so already. And what you're going to do is you're going to be taken to a page where you can fill out data in a new record. You created 2 fields in your app. There's a title field and an author field. Click on both of them. Sorry, not click on, fill them both out. We're going to create a record for us in this MongoDB called Attack on Titan. The author is, oh, let me try this. Hajime Isayama. That's the author, according to Genji. We're going to save this record. And then that's it. We created our first record. You can see in the thumbnail, in the breadcrumbs over here, that we're in the app MongoDB, and we've created a new record. And so what I'd like you to do from here is you can click back on MongoDB and create records from there like you saw, or click on this plus sign. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to create a minimum of 3 records. Sounds so much like MongoDB. Yeah, Bryant, tell us a little bit more about what makes you say that. I'm curious what your comparison is to the document store. Just the name. Oh, MongoDB. Oh, Genji, was that deliberate?
I wish I could claim that. No.
That's awesome. We've been not making that joke for months. Months and months and months. Thank you, Bryant. Well done. Well caught. Okay. Credit me. I will. Genji, can you make a note that we're going to, like, on one of these slide notes, make a MongoDB joke and credit Bryant Cabrera on February, what day is it today? The 24th, the 23rd? Yeah. Cool. Can I have the view ID? No problem. Okay, at this point, if you go back into your app with you'll see this list. You should see the list that you should see the name of the view that you created. And underneath that view, before you click it, you should see there's a bunch of records that you created. But once you click on that search bar view, you should see them all disappear because we've done anything with this customization. It's just an empty div instead of a bunch of records. So all the records disappeared. And what we're going to need to do is programmatically access them and then display something over here, which is why which is what a custom view does. It grabs the data from Kintone via a JavaScript API or a REST API, and then it presents it however you want, which is the magic here that we're showing you. We're talking today about a search bar using React, but really the seeds that we want to plant with you are like anything you want to create as a view for a database can be done here with some simple JavaScript, and you don't have to worry about much else. Okay. We've got a bunch of things to do at this point, and we're going to move into the code. Buckle up. Here we go. We are now going to be inside of the code. Your code should look something like this. And you should have a file inside of VS Code that's called .env.example. This is what we're going to do next. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this .env.example. We are about to put some sensitive information into your environment. And the best practices when you've got sensitive information and you're going to be uploading them to GitHub is you want to prevent your sensitive information from being uploaded. And so the way that we do that is we've got a .env.example that's going to show us exactly the contents that we need. But then it's actually the .env file that we're going to be using programmatically on our machines as our environmental variables. And then it's this example file that's going to be empty that gets uploaded to show people like a template for the environmental variables they need to have handled. So now we have a .env file, and we're going to fill it in. Okay. And it's going to look like this. Your Kintone base URL will be like whatever your subdomain is, .kintone.com, your username, your password, and your view ID. Remember your view ID, that thing that we told you to like write down somewhere? This is the place where you're going to put it.
Both are optional. It's just safer.
Yeah. For us, our search bar view is going to be this. And I'll go ahead and I'll put in the password. And you go ahead and you put in your password on your machines. And so again, if you're not sure where to get that view ID, right over here inside of that custom view, that's where you're going to get your view ID. What about your username? The username is the default email. It's the email that you use to create the subdomain. It's going to be up here. And then if you change your username, it'll be whatever this name is over here. For us, for me in my example, it was developer. Yours will be whatever it is. So you bring your username, your password, the full URL of your subdomain, and the view ID. Let's explore the code. Coding time. Have time for us to go out to the places we will go to. Okay, so we've created our .env file. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into, it's right over here. There's a file called customize-manifest.json. Okay. This is one more piece that we need to fill out in order for us to complete the automated process of uploading our customized JavaScript file into Kintone and have that done automatically. And what it's going to require from you is something called an app ID. Okay. So when you created your app, okay? When you created your app is located at a URL, and you'll see that it'll be like your subdomain.kintone.com /k/ whatever. When you go into your MongoDB app, a URL over here, your app ID is the unique number associated with the unique ID associated with that app. So unique app identifier. We need that's that number. Every app will have a different number, and yours probably is the number 1. This is your first app. If you've never ever created anything with Kintone before, it'll be like 1. Grab this app ID and then drop it in the code over here. So for me, it'll be 34. All right, once you've done that, okay, so we've created a customized manifest. We've created a .env file. We can save both of them. Okay, and what we want to do at this point, they're errors, and they're happening exactly when and where we want them to happen. That's a good thing. We're going to click npm run start over here. Okay, and what this is going to do is going to start executing scripts, our npm script. I'll show you exactly what those scripts are in just a moment. You can take a look at your package.json, and what you'll see is we've got a whole bunch of scripts. There's one called npm run start. What's happening in the terminal is we're starting to run those scripts, and it's telling us, oh, okay, well, we have an error in this place, and we have an error in this place, and we have an error in this place. No problem. So let's start with the, let's see what's going on over here first. And what we're going to do is we're going to start at index. Okay. So let's take a quick look at what's happening over here. React is a tool that lets you handle the way that you present data in a way, and it lets you handle it in a way that's easier for you as a developer, because the way data travels around your application is more predictable. That's what the main benefit of React is. There are some other ones as well. It's now, just like every application, we've got functions and important stuff that's in other places than the specific file we're on, and we need to be able to import it. So that's what all of this stuff is over here. We're importing the use state and use effect functions from React. We're importing some other libraries. There is a get records function, which is one we've created to get Kintone records. And then there are these two components, result list and search bar, and you'll know that they're React components because they're capitalized. They are classes, basically. You'll notice underneath this, now we've got the behavior for this particular index.js file. And the first thing you'll notice is that this is an individually invoked an immediately invoked function expression. This is a way of immediately executing some code. Yes, thank you. Immediately invoked function expression. This is a way of executing code and localizing the scope so that nothing leaks out of it. And we use this in our Kintone files. It's a very common way of scoping your Kintone files. Okay. From here, we're going to we're gonna grab our custom view ID and we're gonna put it into a constant. And then we're going to start hooking into something that are called Kintone events. Kintone events are basically like hooks on the page that are special to Kintone and that happen instead of hooking into browser events. Like you've got browser events, like when the page loads or when the first blah, blah, blah starts to load. And the loading of the page can be unpredictable depending on the browser and the circumstances. So these Kintone event hooks allow you to punch in behavior at a more predictable time. And this particular event hook is called app.record.index.show. This really just means when you're on the list page and you are ready to show all of the records on the list, then do the following. And so first we're going to check that the list page we're on is the list page that is our custom view, because if it's not, then we shouldn't be executing this code. This code should only execute when we are on our custom view. All right, from here, then we're executing a function called app. Are we executing this function? No, we are defining this function called app. And this is our React app. Okay, so what we're doing is, let's think about this for a second. So we've got a search bar, right? There are two components. There's a search bar component where we're going to type something in. And then there needs to be a list component, some place where we like grab the information from Kintone and we display it on a list. And those two components need to be able to talk to each other in some way. Their behavior is intertwined in some way. Okay, so what we would expect is we would need to have some way of getting our Kintone records and then showing them and knowing when we've got them. And then we also need to be able to track whether we have inputted a value in our search bar, and if so, what that value is, which we then can measure against items in my list. Okay, so because of that, we're holding we need to track two buckets of information basically, and track the status of those two buckets of information. The value of the string in my search bar and the items in my list array. And those two buckets that we're tracking the status of, well, that's something called state. And we track state as it changes. And with React, we track state. And when a state changes, React magic happens behind the scenes and it automatically triggers a re-rendering of a component to display whatever is updated based on the new value of the state. So we've got two states over here, the state of our list items in an array and the state of our search results. In other words, the value in that search bar. And what we need to do is we also need to handle a change of filtering the results. No, let me back up a second. In React, when you are creating state buckets, you need to do two things. One is you need to have the actual snapshot of the state at any given moment in time. And then you need to have a function that you use to trigger the change in the state. And so what you see on lines 34 and 35 are the React vocabulary for doing that. We're going to use state, and we're going to push in an empty array first. And the empty array is going to be for the items in our list, followed by a function that we're going to use to set the list items, in other words, to change the state. And then the second thing for the search results. Now, I made a mistake when I was talking earlier. I'm sorry. This is actually something that is not intentional. I talked about how the state is not, so there was two states, and one bucket is for our list items, and the second is for our search results. Sorry, for the second is for the value of the string in the search bar, but that's not accurate. We're not actually tracking the state here in React. That will be handled on a browser level. The two buckets of state that we have are for our original list of items and for our filtered list of items that have passed the search bar query, that have the condition has been true for whatever that filter is. Okay, so sorry about that confusion. If you have any questions about what happened over there, please ask Genji, and I'm sorry about the confusion. So what we're going to do over here is we need a way to filter those results and then pass those filtered results into our set search results function, which will change the search results state. Okay. Then we've got something called a use effect. Use effect is another React hook, like use state. And basically what it does is it takes in two arguments. And first is like the effect, like what happens when a condition is met. And the first is, and the second argument is when do we invoke this use effect hook? So basically what we're doing is on the page load, in other words, when the array is empty, over here on line 58. Then we're going to get the record. So in other words, when we land on the React page, we're going to hit this Kintone event hook. It's going to say, okay, the list of records is ready to be shown, but we actually need to do the work of getting the records because this is a custom view. And so that's what we do over here. This React use effect hook triggers a function that's going to get our Kintone records with an API call. And then we're going to shove them into our state. We're actually going to shove them into two states, our list items and our search results. Okay, and then depending on whether our search results are empty, we will render different, the component will render differently. We've left it as an exercise for you to rewrite this if-else statement as a ternary statement. That's a fun little joke for you guys. Enjoy. And then from here, we render this behavior as a React application in strict mode. This is called the app component, okay? And we hook this app component into the root element. The root ID, which is a div element with an attribute of root, which we created about an hour ago inside of Kintone. Remember I said this root div, everything will hang off of it, and here's on line 83, that's where it happens. So what are we seeing so far? We've got this empty div, we're gonna hang behavior off of it. The behavior that we hang is a React component called app. App is like a container for all of the React stuff. What is React strict mode for, asks Julie. I don't remember the details of React strict mode for off the top of my head. Genji, can you help me answer that question? Thank you. So this app component is going to be a container holding other stuff in it, and as well as instructions for what to render and when, and what to do and when. And so basically, as soon as we get those records and we've got list items that come back, we're going to render a search bar component, and we're going to render a result list component. Okay, let's take a look at what that stuff is. We'll start with the result list. Okay, so here we are on the results list component. And what are we seeing? So what we need is a way to show our list of items that we've got it. And there's no like outside function from the component that's going to like get that information. We need a way to, excuse me one moment. So we need a way to take the data that we've already got from that app, from the behavior that we've already executed called the get records, okay? And we need to push it into this area somehow. We need to render it in this component somehow. And we do that with these parameters called props. Props are a way to pass information from the from the parent component to the child component. Okay, so that's one of the things that makes React work very nicely is we take data that's in a parent component and then we can make it available as props in a child component. And then if those props change, the child component re-renders. So what I'm going to do at this point is, let's take a look if we need to fill anything out over here. So let's see, we're going to accept the list of properties, returns a React element. What we're expecting to see is some kind of a list. Great. So this is what we're going to need. We're going to need this result list. And let's build our unordered list. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to grab our props. Now, what are our props? You know what? We should go back to index.js and check to see if we've pushed our props in. Hold on. Yeah, let me explain where we got this from. In index.js, we've got this React component called ResultList. And we've got this attribute, or at least it looks like an attribute. This is actually React property, it's a prop. And we pass in the value over here, search results, which we got from this state. So we are passing the state that's held in a parent component down into the child component, which is how we get, wait for it. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Which is how we get props.search results. So this is an array. And what we want to do actually is we want to be able to take each item in this array and render it as an order and render it as a list item. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that list of search results, okay? And we're going to, for each result record, there we go. I think there it is. Okay. Okay, yeah, there we go. So for each one of these result records, what we want to do is return a list item. Now you might be wondering, well, how can I return HTML in here? This doesn't make any sense. And I'll just say that this is the magic of React happening right now. This is like your ability to just kind of put in something that looks like a line item, like an LI element, and React can interpret it exactly as we're expecting. Okay. What's going to be inside of it? Well, we're going to want result record. We're going to want a title, right? We're rendering a list of manga titles and authors. So we're going to want a title. Oh man, this is not in the right place. And we're going to say written by result record.author. And you might wonder, where are these title and author properties coming from? And so the shape of this array is coming from the get records API call. And we've made an API call and we've received a list of records, each of which has a title and an author that we're picking off essentially. We're going to need one other thing, which is unique, which is like special to the needs of React, which is something called a key. And we include that because React asks us to, basically. It's saying that for every line item you've got, please make sure that there's some kind of a unique identifier for it. The GSX that allows you to have dynamically, yes. So Brian's saying is so you might be wondering, like, where are these handlebars coming from? Props.search results. And I'm just going to read what Bryant wrote because it's excellent. These bracket syntax is just specific to JSX, which I'll come back to in a moment, that allows you to have data dynamically called on in that HTML looking piece of code. Now, what is JSX? JSX is like React's interpretation of JavaScript that allows you to include this extra stuff in with JavaScript. It's what we call syntactic sugar. that allows you to do more, like put more stuff in it than you would normally. Now, you may not be familiar with the function map. Map is a native function to arrays in JavaScript. And what it does is it takes in an array and it spits out an array. And each item in the array is mapped, is like transformed into an exact other one item. And we're going one by one down this list without skipping anything to create like a transform, like a clone that is then transformed how we want. That's what map does. So Brian says it's essentially a for loop that iterates over each search result in the search results array. And what I would add to that is that actually a for loop gives you a little bit more power because it allows you to like break a loop or to skip certain items. And map is great for its ability to like condense what that specific use case of that for loop, so that you're doing a one-to-one change of every item in the array. So we want every result record to turn into a line item, which is why we're using map. Okay. So, yep, correct. Bryant, keep up the great work. You should come to all of our sessions. We're going to go ahead and save this here. And let's go now into the search bar. So here we are in search bar. I really think this is a case to bring to our IT department and ask them for a faster machine. I've got way too many tabs going on over here. Okay, so what do we want to do with search bar? Search bar is going to take props. It's going to take those it's going to take those, what props does it take? It's going to take the results. No, it's not going to take the results. It's going to take the handle change. Let's talk about that. So you might wonder, why did we design the app this way? Why are the props that we are passing into search bar a handle change function? And this is an object lesson for you and for all of us really in React and its power. So I mentioned that one of the main reasons why people use React is because you have a very predictable way of managing the flow of data. And the reason why it's predictable is because it's strictly enforced. Data flows from the parent component to the child component. And that's it. Well, what if you want data to be exchanged in sibling components? So for example, here we are in this app component. It's got two child components, two children, the search bar and the results list. And we want something to happen where when stuff changes in search bar, we want the results list to update. So how do you do that? Well, we do that by managing the state, and we've managed the state in the parent component. So what happens is we get records in the parent component, we render them, we pass them to the to the result list component. What happens on the search bar side is we have this handle change function that's actually held in the app component, in the parent component. And this handle change, what it does is it takes the search results, it takes the results and it filters them based on stuff that's happening inside of the search bar component, and then it's spitting them out. So this is what we're going to do. Actually, we haven't done this part yet. What we're going to do is, so we filled out the search result, we filled out the result list. What we actually want to do now is we want to handle the way we do our search result. We want to handle the way that changes get made in the search bar component and then filtered to then be passed down into the result list. And so what we want to do is we want to let the filter results equals the list items Sorry, folks, my computer is really lagging. I've got 3 screens to be able to track along with you with enough real estate. So this delay in my time is not expected. What we're doing right now is we are interacting with this list, with this snapshot of our list items, and we're filtering them. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter based on the title. Okay, so each record in the search was each record in those list items is going to have a title and an author. And what we want to do is we want to see that if for any title that we type in, if it includes the value of that string in the search bar. So what's the value of that string in the search bar? Well, React actually doesn't handle that. The browser does. And whenever you type in a value into an input element, which is what a text box, which is what like the search bar is that we're using, an input element, the changes in those values, they can get picked off with an event parameter. What do I mean by that? Well, what we want to do is we want to grab a browser generated event object and we want to use it in our filter condition for that results for those list items. Okay, so we want to match that the title in this list matches, or sorry, not matches, but includes the value of this string. I believe that's all we're looking for over there. There we go. If you're getting an error on your terminal, Julie, that's expected. When I run npm start, okay. All right, so what do we have so far? We have our results list that's pulled down as props from the parent component. We have a handleChange function. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our search bar component. And once we do that, hey folks, again, I apologize for the delay. When we get into our search bar component, what we're going to want to do is hook in the handleChange behavior in the right place. We'll pass it down as a prop, then we're going to execute it with the values that are in that search bar component, but they'll be touching state inside of the parent component. And so in that way, we preserve the flow of data, but are triggering at the right time. All right. Sean, if this doesn't speed up for me in another like minute or so, I'm going to hand this off to you, okay? Okay, thank you. My computer is struggling a lot. This is very unusual. Okay. So let's take a quick look. Okay, so what do we need to handle over here? We've got a div. So what's going on with this search bar? The search bar is a div. It's a form with an input element in it. The class name is going to be search bar. This lets React know that it's going to look a certain way. And then for the on change, we're passing down the handleChange function that we just built on the index side. Okay. And so what I would expect to see at this point is I can run npm start and have this successfully push to Kintone. Let's take a look. Oh, it looks like it was uploaded anyway. Great. Folks, this is what you should expect to see once you've completed filling out these gaps. This has been uploaded, that's been uploaded, this has been uploaded. We found an environmental variable. Done, 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 done. Watching for file changes. Terrific. If you're making any changes to your code, you want to make sure that you are reloading the page so that Kintone will refresh with the updated code. Giulianti, how can I find the app ID? The app ID, look at my screen. I'm inside of the list view. I can see this blue rectangle over here. And you'll see the URL as whatever your subdomain is, .kintone.com/k/the number. It's this number. For me, it's 35. For you, it'll probably be 1. Now, folks, if you've completed the project, you should see I can type in a letter over here, and I will get, it will match a substring up against whatever my results list is. Okay? We did it. We did it. Let's jump in with our next steps. There are lots of places to take this project. You can create a production build, which would be to like minify and see where you can optimize. We've given you as an exercise, there's an if-else statement presenting the react.js syntactic sugar that returns different JSX when rendered. And we invite you to try that, rewriting that as a ternary statement. You can link the lists to the Kintone record or a wiki page with a hyperlink. You can add alternative fields. You can also type up your experience and share it on dev.tl. If you're stuck and you want to know where you can get help, the Kintone developer community, we've got a wonderful forum over there. Your questions will get answered quite quickly. Stack Overflow is also a really great place. Susie.
Hi, Nim, great job. Thank you, Genji and Sean, for all that you did. And thank you to all the participants and the attendees here tonight. We appreciate you coming to these events because it helps us get this great product out there. We also want to say thank you to our community partners, HackBuddy by JavaScript LA. We have a future workshop coming up. The date is in March, and I believe it's the 23rd, but we will be getting you that information. And so we're cooking up some new content for our upcoming workshops. And you can join our meetup at any time at bit.ly/KDP_EVNTS. So it's a bit.ly link to our events. So thank you, and we hope to see you at one of those.
But at this point, I want to thank all of you for being with us. But I just want to say again, you could have been a lot of places. You could have done a lot of things. You chose to spend this time with us. We don't take it for granted. And we love working with you. We really feel like that we're creating like a team here and everybody's in it together. And I love that. And I love being with you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you.